A motion to open this
It's already been
meeting
open.
It's already
of
been
the
open.
Groveland Conservation Commission at 7:33 PM.
Mike, it's already been open.
Second on.
It's already been,
Second.
it's open
All in
already.
favor?
Aye.
Who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
She fourthed
Have
it,
to
since
change
we
it.
already did this.
You're messing up everything, Mike. You come in late, you try to reopen the meeting.
Moving on.
I was at another meeting.
Wah, wah, wah.
I'm not complaining.
Oh, wait,
I'm just
we are on the
telling
air now. Oh, well. My wife has warned me about things like this. She watches the Groveland channel and says, if you ever do anything like that. It's like I do that all the time. Anybody else?
All right. I'm gonna motion to open this continued hearing from February for 180R Center Street. Notice of intent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so I think,
Now, did you meet with the planning board
I did.
with Greg?
No,
No.
no. I just went to a meeting of the planning board last night, told them that, you know, we were meeting tonight with, to review the peer review process, and probably we would be making a decision on it this evening.
And did any of them indicate they wanted to sit in, or?
No.
Just gonna leave it up to us, because we know
Yes.
what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
So, at our last meeting, we got some input from Greg Hockmuth, our peer reviewer for the project. And as you remember, we wanted him to come and talk a little bit about some of the issues that he brought up. And he responded in writing to the commission. I'm not going to read it, but I'll let Greg talk about some of this stuff. And then that went also to Mary Rimmer from the applicant, for the applicant, and I'm assuming that she'll have some things to add to some of what the input from Greg was.
What was the date of that, Mike?
That was February 19th.
All right, so yesterday.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
Yes. So this is up to date. Want to turn it over to you, Greg?
Sure. Good evening, Greg Hockman from Williams and Sturgis. You were hired, as you know, to conduct a peer review of the notice of intent filed for the 180R Center Street project. We reviewed the initial submittal when we prepared a report, which I think you guys read, that was dated early February. Based on that report, there was some revisions made to the plans. Those revised plans are what the commission reviewed at their last public hearing last week. We reviewed the revised plans and submitted a new peer review letter dated February 19th yesterday. And after submitting that, I had some discussions with Mary over the phone, just going over a few items. We understand that the commission does want to make a decision tonight, so we want to do our best to flush everything out so we've got a productive meeting tonight so that could happen. There were still a few questions that we had with respect to the crossing and whether or not it complied with the stream crossing standards. So I can go over those in a minute. Most of the other items that we had were just minor items. We didn't have the updated notice of intent filing that had all the signatures, check numbers. There were a few small items like that that we pointed out that were very, very minor. The big ones were the waiver requests. There were two of them. I think one of them was withdrawn, and that was to work within your seasonal restriction. It's our understanding that's off the table now. The only other lingering waiver is the Paddocks for the commercial project within 100-foot buffer zone. But the bulk of our comments were related to the stream crossing standards and the crossing itself. Even though this stream isn't much of a stream at all, it's a glorified drainage ditch. Unfortunately, the regulations, unless you get the Army Corps of Engineers to agree that it doesn't have to comply with the stream crossing standards, you have to comply with them. So there's a certain span that's typically required, or a culvert in this case is allowed, as long as it meets a certain design criteria, as far as sinking it a certain depth, reconstructing the channel within the culvert after it's set. There's openness ratio required. But the big thing too was the actual width of the culvert. You're supposed to do 3 cross sections, one at the beginning, one at the end, and one somewhere in the middle. When we scaled the bank that was located by Donahoe and Parkhurst, it averaged out to, I think, almost 7 feet. It's like 6.6. So to get the 1.2 times bank full width, that required almost an 8-foot culvert in order to comply with the standards. The revised plan also, it wasn't embedded 2 feet, it was only embedded 1 foot. The regulations are pretty clear, it has to at least be 2 feet. So I think we'll probably see a revised plan that shows that. So I'm hoping that the design team agrees with most of my comments. And I think if they do, I think we'll have a project that complies with the stream crossing standards at the state and local level, as well as the requirements set forth in the general permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. But I can go through the prior letter and our latest letter too, if you want. But the 2 hanging items were the paddocks in the buffer zone and really the work at the crossing. Oh, and the trail. Portions of the existing trail actually go into the BBW in several locations. I know the trail's been there for a little while. I just pointed that out because I'm not sure if the commission wants that trail used, at least the portions within the resource area. Maybe it makes sense to relocate those portions a little bit further away, so you don't have horses going into the BBW.
By what are you referring to, the trail?
So there's a pretty extensive trail network on the property. It shows best in the existing conditions plan. I think it's sheets 2 and 3, the plan set.
Discuss this?
I do have that. I
Yeah,
have
feel
it.
it.
I have it
Good.
here. Is it okay if I just fold it out up here?
No, no, it's-
So this is really 2 plans that connect together. So just to get your bearings, here's Center Street. This is where the crossing is proposed. There's an existing path and trail network that goes through the property. And in several locations, it actually goes into the delineated BBW. Here. I haven't seen the trail. When I was out here, there was snow on the ground.
Really, yeah, it's a very informal path that, it's not been a built trail or anything like that, it just happens to be, you know,
Is that meant as a riding trail or a walking trail?
It was a walking trail.
yeah.
Like, it was there before the wetlands.
And will be, no, I'm just saying, do you plan to take horses on it, or?
I don't have nothing to do with that, but it always was a walking trail.
Yeah.
That's been there since I was a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the neighbors use come through the property. and
Yeah,
actually
they're-
requested whether or not they could
Yeah.
continue to
Right.
do that as part of this, so it connects to the rail trail here, as you can
Right.
see. So it's a cut through from Center Street to the rail trail. But, yeah, it's, you know, this is the sensitive area right here, but I think that I remember now, Greg, if there was something at the crossing, right there, stones or something?
I didn't even,
think there
I didn't even
was.
see it,
Yeah.
I noticed, I read through some of the paperwork
There's a
and
nice
said,
piece of
Connected to the
upland
rail
right
trail,
here,
right.
so, I don't think that that would be an issue to, to discontinue this trail section here, unless there was some further filing
Where
that
does,
would
where does
allow
this
it.
go?
Right to the rail trail right here.
So it
It
connects
continues
somewhere up
Yeah,
here.
continues on the.
I presume you want the
town
horses to go
road.
on the rail trail.
Yeah, they do, they want to have access there too, but you connect,
So access for the horses could be different than what the existing path is what you're telling us.
I don't know that it's even crossed through that much. Yeah,
I'm only asking because we had never mentioned this in last week's
Yeah.
meeting at all,
right.
or the other time. We
Right.
talked about a lot of other things.
Which is why we pulled quick.
I mean, people will tend to use what's available, what's there. If there's portions of this path that are better, relocated up, that's not a hard thing to do. I mean, it only needs the width of the horse to go
Right.
through, so they can even do it now, walking through between trees and everything, and stay out. They don't wanna walk where it's muddy anyway, you lose shoe.
Yeah.
So they wanna stay in the high, dry area anyway, so chances are, that's what would happen.
maybe at a pre-construction meeting,
We could stake something out or something
stake out
like
a,
that.
relocate the trail in certain spots where it makes more sense.
Yeah,
And it might make absolute sense where it is now, I just haven't physically seen it on the ground. But
Yeah.
typically, trails that continue to get used within BVWs get softer and softer, people start going around, now you can drive a
And
truck down.
and it won't be any good there won't be any use for them if it does get to that point, because they won't, if it's mucky, they won't walk in it, so, I think that's a good idea, to do it that way and stake something out that would be acceptable. I'm fine with that.
Get the fourth graders to build a bridge.
Yeah.
But that was just I think the only 3 items that were really still hanging.
Okay.
And because we just received the comments, and I agree with everything that Greg has come up with, and he made a good point about the Army Corps of Engineers, which doesn't have directly to do with you, but because their crossing requirements vary a little bit from the state regulations, we want to make sure we have a plan that we don't have to come back to you for. So what we're proposing to do, in order to address those comments, is make sure that we stay in what they call the self-verification category for Army Corps, meaning that we don't have to file for a permit. If we meet the permit standards, then we just file the paperwork saying we're eligible. So what we're proposing is a 10-foot opening in the culvert, rather than the 6-foot that's the current. If we go 10 foot, that more than meets the 1.2 bank full requirement, no matter what iteration of the channel we use, because you've seen it, it's certainly not.
It's not a
8
raging
foot long.
torrent.
No. And it's no problem, we can vary it to 2 feet, so that it just means more excavation, a larger opening, larger, depth. We talked a little bit about this at
Yep.
the last meeting. So, if your order of conditions can specify that the culvert needs to be a 10 by 5, essentially, so that your opening would be
3
30
feet
square
above,
feet.
yeah.
And then at the 30 square feet, we would be able to meet the 0.82 minimum openness ratio as well, for a 35-foot wide
I think rather than specifying a
culvert.
specific size, we should just say it needs to meet Army Corps specifications.
Yep, that's what
Yeah, I think the revised plan that's referenced in the order will show exactly what Mary's describing, which will in turn comply with all the standards. It's a little unclear in the state regs, they don't technically require the openness ratio, but the Army Corps of Engineers does. And, we look at the updated general permit from 2018, and it's pretty specific that openness ratio is required.
Need room for the
Well,
sturgeon to
the
breed.
whole, wetland definition is now in flux at the federal level too, so who knows if we even have a jurisdictional wetland there. I think we will, but the definitions of stream and wetland are.
And a 10 by 5 culvert isn't gonna impact what's driving over the thing in terms of the weight of the trucks and all that?
No, and Thad may be able to answer that question better than I can, but I imagine it will be.
So 8 H20 loading for the
Regardless of the size of the culvert, 12 feet wide, whatever, it comes to the site designed for H20 loading.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
So it might be a little thicker because it's got a longer span
It's
or
usually
something.
It's usually more rebar.
Okay.
And there were just some questions that we had with respect to how the stream channel was gonna be reconstructed within the culvert. And it's my understanding it comes in sections, so you'll probably be able to reconstruct it in sections as it comes in.
Exactly that. I updated the stream crossing construction sequence to, and the section that has to do with compliance with the stream crossing standards. I can provide you copies of that tonight, but that reflects the additional excavation needed for the larger culvert and the corrected culvert sizes that are, there was some inconsistency in the document previously with the culvert size because we continued it. So I've corrected that in the document that you can reference in the order of conditions. And then just the last item, I guess, that we need to decide upon was the waiver request for these two paddocks here, this round pen, and then this tiny bit back here. And I wanted to, we have a proposal that we don't want to present, but we have it available if we need to present it, that reduces the size of these two paddocks and moves the round pen over here, and creates a little more opportunity for some buffer zone planting between the existing paddocks and the wetland edge. And all of the paddocks and all of the work stays within the existing cleared paddocks that are there, doesn't go into the tree line at all. But before I offer that, I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, they're proposed to be 20 to 25 horses on the property at any one time. It fluctuates, but I think that you're talking about a maximum of somewhere around 25. And they all need to get outside, and they want to try to maintain this as open and grass as possible. So right now, with that many animals, they get half-day turnout essentially in these paddocks. And more intensive use than that, or reducing the size of the paddocks by eliminating these two, means that the ones that are here get used more. It gets harder to maintain them in the turf that they're intending to create here. And so it becomes just a little bit less green space, more intensive use, more potential for erosion, runoff. Not that that can't be handled within here as this area is outside of the buffer zone. But that's the reasoning. They need to have a minimum of 12 paddocks somehow or other in some configuration really to make it viable for the number of animals that they need to have to make it viable business as well. So, you know, really would like to try to keep these, if at all possible, in place. And this is, the round pen is really important as far as the training for the horses that we have there.
And you're not talking about eliminating them, you're talking about reducing them slightly, or what's the? I mean, you've told us that this thing exists, so you sort of have to show it to us.
So it's, I don't want small sizes, but what it does is flip-flop them so that one of the paddocks faces the building.
And the square footage is,
So what you end up getting some restoration there of about, was it that 2,000?
2,555 square feet.
Right.
I can just look over here.
Okay.
So it's basically creating a buffer over here and pushing the paddock over to the top, or the round thing.
there you go.
So
This way that, you know, you're able to keep
this one's
all
entirely
three elements in
in.
some configuration
And
that's
they're
still
already existing.
some kind of
already
workable
there. This
size.
at least is, that
But
is
also,
almost entirely out
you know,
of it then,
the
which
most
is,
sensitive
makes
area
me
closest
happier.
to the wetland is, you got some additional buffer area with some opportunities for planting in there.
I think that would make John very happy. And how much smaller are these?
What's that?
What about the back?
The back.
Yeah, keep pointing to the back. Oh, wait.
The back of what?
Maybe that one.
10% small. 10% small.
Did you just figure that out?
So it's a 250?
It's 10% smaller.
It's my guess.
The one
What's your
paddock
guess?
in the corner.
Think so? Give or take? 10%?
That's the old plan.
Right.
So we're moving that over here.
Twisting these, well, this is going over there.
These two were entirely within the 100-foot buffer. This was about half in the.
This doesn't seem like it's a usable space though. I mean, I'm inclined to give them more, but I wish they could split it around and put this up here and maybe make that padding bigger. That's, I mean, like, I'm inclined to say that move this thing over to the edge so that's almost all entirely out and then, but make this a bigger, because that's a weird size for a horse to maneuver.
Yeah.
I don't think the carrot is square. Look at those back there, they're trying to
It's on the
see.
edge, that one's bigger than.
This is obviously trying to accommodate us, but I'm just saying it just,
I don't think you could move that anymore because that's the property line.
no, I'm saying put this here, but make this a bit more, like just go down here and keep that around. That's all I'm saying is make this a
Well,
bigger
that's
space for
more of what they originally had. See, that's
seem
what
to
they
fall
did,
in
is
anything.
cut that off.
Yeah,
It was square.
right. But I think this is more obtrusive than having green space, and they've already got the green space out there. Like a paddock seems like a less offensive use of the space than a lunging, or maybe it's just my,
I
because this,
don't know.
because this looks like an active thing that they're talking about, circling horses around. There's not gonna be grass on that,
No, right.
so that's why.
Yeah, it's gonna be a sandy thing.
Right, that's what, I'm inclined, my thought on the whole thing is, I like the flipping of it, but I would say that make your paddock bigger, if that's possible. I know that sounds weird, but this one, make this, like, square it up more to give yourself more space, but move the round up that way, is my thought, is that this is less obtrusive to me to
Yeah.
the green space than this thing is gonna be, but keep this where it's at, but just make this more square, like,
Yeah.
like,
So take away
yeah,
some of the
go,
planting.
yeah, that's what that's my thought on the thing is in terms of,
Yep.
I'm not anti-horse by any stretch of the imagination, I'm just trying to minimize the impact. But I get what they're trying to do in terms of maximizing the space, but this just seems like an odd, I know what you're doing in terms of you're accommodating us, which I
Yeah,
appreciate.
you're trying to compromise as much
But-
as possible.
It's a
and
little, that would be an awkward paddock shape, yes.
But if, I'm saying if you make it more
Square it off a little
square,
bit more.
I look at this as more, because this is gonna be something that's gonna be active, and you're not gonna have grass there and stuff like
No.
that. This is gonna be more of a grass space, which granted, you're using it, but I'm saying make it make it bigger for your sake, if
Yeah.
that makes more sense for you guys,
Okay, that's
unless,
easy enough, yep.
You can do that.
Yeah, because we're losing about 2,500 square feet.
Do you want to mark it on a?
I'm just one guy's
Well,
opinion though, I want you
yeah.
guys to talk about it.
Well, mark out a suggestion, we'll take a look at it, and if we like it, we'll
All I'm thinking is take this thing and just go down,
So he
down
wants you
and
to
make
write
it,
on it?
okay.
put it with a, use a pen, John, use a
Can I
pen.
borrow your pen? It's already been, this,
Mark it up.
this is what I want them to do. Basically make their space bigger.
He wants to square.
Pass it down.
So, basically go make it.
Not take off any, just
Correct.
give them
And
some
then if they
more.
want to do something in terms of making it hidden here,
Yeah.
at least you're hiding this, but this being is a.
Just grass,
Yeah,
Like that.
yeah.
There you go. That's what he proposed.
You're not gonna complain if you get more space, right? Okay.
Same thing.
Run like the wind.
There we go.
Give it to him? Absolutely.
Crossing,
does that make it
Waiver.
hard for, I don't know the first thing about
Path.
horses, except that I've been on them a couple times. Is that, I mean,
No, we
is that
appreciate
difficult
that.
for working, for having the lunging pen? Is it more difficult to have the lunging pen up towards the top?
Nope,
Okay.
nope.
But you're
The,
talking
uh,
about taking that
the,
completely out of the buffer.
Well, it's got a little bit here, but.
It's got a scooch.
But I don't care about that, but I'm just
Horses
saying.
just like to see each other, so
Yeah.
as long as the paddocks can, have some sort of interaction.
Right.
You can't just have
It's-
one there.
Yeah, you
No.
can't, yeah.
I get that. I'm just saying, I like the switch, and I'm just saying,
so,
make your spot, your
Spot
bigger
bigger.
one, more square and bigger.
In our
for you.
gratitude for making that move, we would like to offer you some more space.
Greatly appreciated.
So we had stream crossing issues that we've come to a consensus/agreement on.
Your advisor, what do you think about the switch of what they're proposing as a last ditch?
Here's the,
No, it's a lunge. It's not for riding.
here's the
You just take
revised.
horses out and
Go
wrap
around
them
in a
around in a
circle.
circle. It's a lunging,
There's
so
the
it's not just
suggestion.
grass, it's only the
They have someone who stands in the middle and directs the horses to go in a circle, basically, and it gets, they get energy out, I guess.
It's lunging.
Yes. I need one of those in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Or
I think the
That's not our
reason for the
jurisdiction.
setback in
That's
the
not an issue, it's a planning,
bylaw,
planning thing.
regulations is probably just the
Zone.
fear of increased nutrients into the resource area of the paddock that close, potential for bacteria and whatnot from the north. and
But if it's
storm-
grassy and
As long as they're
absorbing,
maintained.
as long as there's not runoff,
Right.
Right, and I think that fix, you get some of your 25-foot no disturb back, you can increase that vegetated buffer strip, however you decide to increase the, decrease the potential for nutrients to reach that resource area. I think it's a positive change.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think, are we trying to stay, we're trying to stay out of the, completely out of the no disturb, right?
No, we have to,
We
the
have to-
bylaw says it can't be in the
Okay, so-
100-foot. So this is what the bylaw says. Specifically, it says no paddocks, which these are, shall be installed within 100 feet of any resource area.
Right, so we're
So-
discussing,
So, right now, they are there. So, doesn't really matter if they're a foot in there, they can't be there. So, we've got to figure out a way, if we're gonna allow them, why. So, the normal reason why we may, and we rarely do it, decide to allow that kind of thing, and there's only one time that I recall that we have allowed something like this, commercial property or whatever, within the not allowed 100-foot resource of the resource area, is because it's environmentally better. So, the first question that I would have, now, this is for us to discuss, really, because we have to make this decision, is why are paddocks specifically mentioned in the bylaw? What is the reason? It doesn't talk about chicken coops in the resource area. It doesn't
grazing
talk about
cattle.
plenty of other things, but it specifically says the word paddocks, and these are paddocks. So, I think probably like Greg mentioned, it's the manure that's generated there on the land, it sits there, and then the fear is that it's going to run off into the BVW and contaminate it. Is that valid? I don't know. And then, we asked for reasoning on why they should be allowed in the 100-foot buffer. And we got back in the letter that the proposed paddocks are intended to remain vegetated and contain no permanent structures other than fencing or irrigation. They will continue to provide a natural buffer to wetland resources. So, is that true? Or is it any better to have the paddocks there that are irrigated grass, basically, versus no further work being allowed there. So there would be no change to what's there. Is it better to allow the paddocks? I don't know how much better it is gonna be than what's there, but that's another point we have to decide.
Are the paddocks, I believe they're already within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yes,
for
they
the
are.
Pre-existing use. I'm just
They are,
pointing
but
that out.
but they are not there legally.
Okay,
You know, we never allowed them to be there.
gotcha. I'm just pointing out.
So, I guess those are the two real issues. And I don't know, you know, I think we're gonna have to answer those two questions before we waive this requirement, because it's a very specific requirement in the bylaw, and I'm not comfortable with easily waiving it. I think that it's gotta be done for a very specific reason. Anybody want to start debating that?
So I guess
Yeah.
what I remember from the site visit is it's, in that area, it's sort of patchy grass, sandy,
Yeah, because it hasn't been
and it
used.
hasn't been used. Are these paddocks going to be planted, sodded, or, and so now you'll have, say, better vegetation there, or more, so.
Well, is irrigated, planted grass better than the natural environment that it will go back to if it's not allowed to be put in there? I don't know. I don't know if it's better, it might be the same. What do you think, John?
I think that the risk of having nutrients go into the protected area is less severe there than it would be in other areas because it is so flat. I don't see a lot of pitch there, and I think that it's probably, I don't see them, as much as there's gonna be horse manure naturally occurring there, I don't imagine that it's gonna be something that's gonna be of such a quantity, and they're not gonna run a successful business if they're leaving manure all over the place for horses. So I think that by nature of running a good business, they're gonna mitigate some of the concerns that we have concerning effluent going into the protected resource area.
Yeah, you're looking at about maybe a 1-foot drop every 25 feet or so. Which is, what is that, half an inch per foot? It's not like the hills of California. And I think with these proposed plantings around the outside, it's gonna actually be an improvement. I think I think as long as they stay outside of the 25-foot no disturb, I'm not hugely concerned. The statements about the paddocks and the bylaw had been forgotten about me years ago, and I can't think of why they would be specifically cited. And you don't have any local lore about that?
No, but I suspect it's because of something to do with the manure.
Yeah, I mean,
That makes
but
sense.
we've got grazing cattle in town that are walking through wetlands.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that they're not going to a dry upland to relieve themselves.
No, but, you know, that doesn't mean it's right necessarily, you know what I mean?
One of the things that's guiding my thought on this process is that this is the end of what you can possibly do in this spot, because they're blocked off entirely. I mean, the wetlands are prohibitive from doing any further development on at least two sides of the project, if not three. So you're not gonna go from 25 horses to 200 horses, or even, 50 horses. This site is
It's
limited.
naturally limited.
Yeah, correct.
Well, so is it a question of economics?
That's a question for you guys, not for us to, I mean, I don't know the economics of horses. I know I don't want one, I know my daughter asked for one, and I said, hell no. So, but you tell us.
Go down the street to where they've got them.
That's okay, so.
Well, so what would be the economic impact of not having that circle or the two paddocks?
Well, as Mary was saying, without these two paddocks in particular, the other paddocks are gonna be used more.
Yeah.
We're trying to maximize our space and keeping as much green all year round as we possibly can. So the smaller the paddocks and the more use paddocks get, the less and less you're likely to keep the nice vegetation and the pretty look, which is, what we're going for.
Yeah, but,
The obvious corollary is less horses too, though, so.
We don't want a whole field of mud, or a whole area of mud. It doesn't even look appealing.
but would you have less horses?
I don't know, it remains to be seen, I suppose. What do you think? Do we have less horses?
Probably see how it goes, right? If it's too cramped and messy, then you say, we can't do this many.
That's the thing, is the stalls are there and they're built. There's gonna be a temptation, whether you guys own it or somebody else in the future, to have as many horses as, the property can
Sustain.
house at night. So I think you have to plan for that many. Whether you choose to take that many on, in the short term.
So there's no real
The business
economic,
is gonna grow.
there's
so-
no economic impact to not allowing these then, is basically what you're saying. Yes, you're gonna use the other paddocks more, but as far as saying, well,
You're gonna
know,
divide up the other paddocks, they won't be as big, basically.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to put more
We're
fencing in.
gonna have
and
to rearrange
make
the
them smaller.
smaller.
Because you still have to have at least 12
Yeah,
paddocks,
we're gonna.
no matter what you do.
And I'm sure those paddocks would be much better with what they're gonna do, because out to the York rakes, hand rakes, I mean, literally shovel it. And I kept them fairly decent all by myself, so, and with what they're doing, it's way beyond what I was doing, just so you know.
anybody else have any other comments or questions here about the,
How are you on paddocks?
I'm actually quite good with their proposal, to be honest with you.
Okay.
They could actually help the environment and ensure the area, especially with the trees.
Well, I think if we
Town with it.
maybe push the tree plantings out a little bit more to, maybe go along the line of the no disturb zone at least, that would,
What do you mean,
Protect it
closer to the
even-
paddock?
huh?
Closer to the paddock?
Well, it would be close to the paddock,
Okay.
mostly because it would become closer to it. So what I'm suggesting is bring the trees out like this instead of these guys. So kind of like that.
Would you go for the paddock as they've proposed it, or?
No,
my
you can
No,
thoughts?
I'm
still
saying,
square
no,
it
you
off.
can
Square.
you can still come down, it may not be perfectly square, maybe this comes in a teeny bit or something, but, I think you can run trees along here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
that's just,
They don't have to
This
in
would be
that
open- this would be
configuration.
open
You could
weeds.
do those and additional trees in
Yeah.
here,
It's
Yeah.
very better all.
Yeah, this is the 100-foot right here.
Oh, right.
I mean, I'm not,
So either way.
without knowing about
They've
the
moved this,
terrible
which was
history
all
of
over
paddocks
here
in
back there.
Groveland over the years, I'm less concerned.
I mean, if there was a livestock, like the goats or cows or something that would meet the agricultural exemption, you wouldn't see it at all. You wouldn't be able to regulate it at all. It would be exempt, an exempt activity.
There are cattle walking around in the wetlands
Yeah.
on King Street.
Yeah, so it's not ideal, you know, and they're,
My thought
it's
is,
harder to manage.
go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
This is a scenario which you can actually control the situation and manage it and without having an adverse impact.
I think having these two paddocks too would, obviously, we talked about being able to rotate the horses through the paddocks, but these two in particular, we'd be able to, at certain times of the year when you're trying to rest paddocks so that they don't get muddy and so that the grass does continue to grow. And having these two specifically over on this side, because if you're resting one, you need to rest the other because one horse can't go out by itself typically. So there would be periods of time throughout the year where these two paddocks would be resting so that the grass would regrow and there wouldn't be animals in them. So I think that's something that's important to consider as well.
I was just wondering if their use can be delineated as almost like overflow paddocks, like as the.
Well, I would
not
say
paddocks
these
of
are,
last
these are
resort,
probably
because-
less desirable because they're smaller and they're isolated from all the rest of
and
them.
the horses
I just
like
think
hang out
that,
together. It just
that
seems like that's what-
naturally,
They
Yeah.
may be used initially during construction, if you have horses in during construction, so it's gonna be a little bit away from.
anyway, there's a lot of speculation.
Right,
I think we just have to decide whether we're concerned about the specific use of paddocks in the bylaw. And I can't really think of anything that concerns me overly much. I'm saying that out loud into the microphone.
Well,
Is there another area where the paddocks were in the buffer zone, like towards the
There's a
back that you mentioned?
teeny one on the number
Yeah,
10 or whatever it
they
was.
evened off the,
they took them out, I
ones in the
believe.
back.
Oh,
They're still.
They cut those
haven't
back,
changed.
but
Those
there's a
yeah, they
teeny,
cut back, but there's number 2, there's a teeny little bit here, just because we want to even
in
out
that
the
one.
fence
I mean,
line
if you
here.
want to,
There's a trailhead right
Mike,
Yes.
here.
is there a reason why we're talking about these two then and not that one?
Well, no, I would include
Okay.
that too.
I'm just curious.
I, you know,
It's like there's more in
like I
paddocks.
say,
here.
according to the bylaw, you know, any paddock can't be within the 100-foot buffer. So, you know, whatever that is.
And what is
whether
that
it's those
currently?
3 in the other corner,
Like,
but
what does it look like
One is-
today?
Oh, this is all wooded here.
Wooded,
Yeah,
okay.
Well, not, I shouldn't say it's all.
It's
wooded.
mostly
The tree
like
line comes through here somewhere.
scrub brush and
Yeah,
stuff.
there's some paddocks, the paddocks
Weeds.
go, existing paddocks come back to about here, and then there's some
Trees.
trees back here on the hill.
Cut them trees.
Yes. The reason they've been laid out here is because there is a trail right now
Lots of
existing that connects right here. So that's why that's there, to just connect to the trail, and then these are just evened off. These are less critical, you know, it's still, this would be much smaller, but we're just, in the interest of not having fencing coming out and making a lot of angles, we just straighten it out there. You know, the other thing to consider is if this is a single, you know, residential subdivision or something, you can, I understand under your bylaw, I believe, you could go within 25 feet, right, up your driveways and your lawns and everything else. So it's very inconsistent, given that, you know, the type, this is a development where you have a substantial amount of open space that's being retained over this property. And that, you know, that of all this 20 acres or so of land, really the only, it's just the road and the building here, and everything else is essentially open space. So it's a low intensity development compared to what you might see for your typical residential
right, but
development.
you see, the problem is that if we are gonna waive our bylaw when it specifically says something like this, there's no question about this. It says paddocks shall not be within the 100-foot buffer zone,
It
and
says-
you are proposing
Yeah.
that. So why aren't we gonna
Pulled
put it in place according to what the bylaw says. All right, so there's two things. We can say there's an economic hardship, or, as we have in the past, one other time, that it's environmentally better to do it this way. So I want to hear, already we heard that the economics are that, you know, the cost of extra fencing and maintenance on the other limited paddocks, if these paddocks aren't there, is going to be costly. All right, so that's the best we can do on the economic side. Now I want to hear
Well, I think you can
from-
also say that if the horses don't have as much space, they're gonna have fewer potential customers. There might be some that say, wait, it's just too crowded here, right? That's a possibility.
Also, this
Or it
ground,
just doesn't, you know, the facility doesn't look like a nice facility, it's, you know, it's all muddy all the time, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Erosion and
And-
sedimentation, yeah, they're not so concerned about the aesthetics of it as
Yeah.
the function of it.
Right,
And I think with the planting that are proposed, there is an improvement there. You've got nothing
Right.
there in that buffer area right now. It's a substantial improvement to the buffer zone by creating this planting area that separates the paddocks from the wetlands, from what's there now. So I think we can meet that, you know, substantial improvement, that you're looking for, Mike. I know you're looking for something to, you know, to latch onto on
What-
this, but
What we have to do is, we have to be able to defend this before somebody else that comes in and asks for something else. See, and I'm not super comfortable still with enough evidence that I can defend this a year from now or 2 years from now to somebody else that comes in and wants a waiver. So,
there isn't any other way to approach the regulations, because there's a blanket presumption, I guess, that it has an impact. And so therefore, 100 feet is the limit of your jurisdiction. You know, you only have jurisdiction to 100 feet, so basically you're saying, we don't want to see any paddocks. We don't want to look at it or review, we don't want you to file for any paddocks. Because you wouldn't see them otherwise, you're only going to be, if somebody's outside of 100 feet, you're not going to have any regulatory authority over it. So I'm just trying to say that we're only here because that's the limit of your jurisdiction.
I know,
The
but
setback to the limit of your jurisdiction.
we didn't write the bylaw. The
Right.
bylaw is what it is. The bylaw says it.
Mhm.
So we have to be able to defend the
Sure.
bylaw.
Yep.
So commissioners, I would like to hear, you know, either we're gonna vote to deny these paddocks being in the 100-foot buffer, or tell me, you know, if you're gonna vote for some kind of waiver, what is your environmental basis for doing that?
I think the environmental basis is that if they take steps to improve the protection of the
Protected area.
the protected area, and maintain this, it will be marginally better than it was before. I'm not saying it's gonna turn it into a hanging gardens of Babylon or anything, but it's gonna be just slightly better than it was before.
Well, those paddocks weren't supposed to be there.
Well, were they there prior to the bylaw?
No. Those paddocks were put in within the last 10 years.
so
So-
is the current ground sand in the paddock?
Yes.
Okay, so the drainage is gonna go wherever the sand allows it to go? Is that,
Well, it's usually down.
oh, is it? All right.
Is there a way that they can improve on the protection for the area?
Well, I think these
think this
plantings are gonna take steps toward that.
Is there anything else we could ask for?
That's what I was.
What's in the hatched area here? What's that meant to be?
That's all planting areas, so that's gonna be, you know, meadow grass or, we haven't,
Okay, so in addition to the tree buffer,
we can put shrubs.
I'm
Or
throwing it
how
out
about
there.
a wall or something?
Right.
We're gonna revegetate.
A wall. What would a wall do? It would just stop
Prevent-
from runoff.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying that
Runoff.
Right.
might be,
Trees will do,
Well, they're planning on revegetating this and making it less prone to runoff.
I can't imagine a wall is gonna improve it.
I'd be
In a
concerned to
serious
get
way.
Trigger word.
Yeah.
Put a little berm,
Yeah.
you know, at the edge of the paddock, a small berm that, so that you don't get runoff.
We
Perfect.
could regrade this as a low area to trap anything going there.
Just kind of have it be a,
Right.
yeah.
And we
I don't know
could- and
anything
the
about
vegetation
brown, so-
around here, I'm just showing, I
Sounds
know I'm
good to
showing
me.
trees, but it was meant, whatever best vegetation as a whole, both trees, shrubs, or ground cover.
Yeah, well, I think a border of something
Yep.
shrub or larger, and then,
So the way I'm looking at this now, from basic, what I saw on the site visit, if they talk about revegetating,
Yeah.
that's actually an improvement over what's there now. I know it wasn't supposed to be that way, but I do see it as an improvement now. It becomes a natural filter to whatever.
That's what I was
I guess I'd be curious, and this may be off topic, but I know we're worried about the nutrients going through. I don't know that horse manure is all that nutrient rich. I don't know, like, versus another
like
type of
pig,
animal.
pig manure.
Yeah.
Chicken.
And again, I think, so I think that the problems are lessened because of the type of animal. That's why I'm curious about the whole why, a paddock kind of thing.
I do know that they use, horse manure is given, they're sold off because it's useful for, it's nutrient rich.
It's
Yeah, I've
But-
tried to use it
compost
in-
though more than,
Yeah.
it's
than
not-
nutrients.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying
it's
that in
not
terms
as-
of that, but I'm trying to focus on a way that they can improve the area that they're,
Well, I think
that's
they are.
buffing onto it. So, or something more sniffing than saying putting a shrub in or something like, or, I don't know.
I think a lot of the vegetation, or a lot more than that's there now, like I said, is an improvement
Right.
for the whole system as it is, regardless of the paddock, but if you
Putting
can do a
trees would allow
berm-
us to prevent horses from going over there anyway, not
Yep.
that they're not gonna be protected, but that's one of the things that you would wanna be concerned about them, is them themselves getting into the,
It doesn't become a
protected area.
trail around the paddock, it doesn't, yeah.
right.
And it reduces erosion.
What's that?
It reduces erosion also.
That's a good point, too.
I like the idea of a berm,
Yeah, just in case.
just as an added stop. I don't know,
I'm inclined to think that that's a good idea, yes.
wherever,
It's
anywhere
mostly
on there.
carbon. Yeah.
It's already grass.
I like it. Nice stir it up.
So if we were placing along so bring those trees out, so
Yeah, what
Well, you have this
what
whole area.
what we're suggesting
We have
is
this
maybe
whole
pop,
area.
pop these guys out here, and they're gonna just continue with their plans for landscaping and making it a little more conducive to small plant growth, as opposed to
'Cause
kind
you
of.
can do it all.
yeah, and then some kind of berm along in front of those trees.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be much, because the
It's flat
the
anyway.
drop-off
It's
is
not very.
half an inch per foot
Yeah, it wouldn't work for a shed roof.
or so.
Could actually do the berm right there.
And you're willing to dig this berm, right?
I'd like to dig.
By hand, because you're in a
That's
protected
not,
area.
that's, I have no machinery.
No shovels.
That I'm not so keen about.
Yeah.
There's a pretty extensive land management plan too that Mary put together that includes picking up manure, and it describes where it goes and what the frequency is.
No, I think overall, we've been very impressed with the overall plan and with the willingness to address our concerns very quickly and in ways that we've wanted them. So it's not a hostile board here, just a concerned board. Commission. commission.
That's right, we're not a board.
And for once, it's right on the TV.
Yes, yes. I don't have a lot of other questions, Mike.
No, no, like I say, I just want as much evidence here of, improvements. So,
Well, it looks, I would say that doing this portion of it, there would be some minor improvements. It's not gonna be, a huge turnaround, and not doing it would represent a minor but probably measurable, commercial disadvantage. So I think it's a combination of the two of them. Neither one of them all that hugely compelling, but it just doesn't seem unreasonable. Hate to use double negatives, but
yeah,
there you go. Doesn't seem unreasonable.
can't think of anything else.
All right, let's
Let's vote.
think about what we're going to vote on, or at least what we think we can get a
Well,
consensus on.
first, we have to vote this waiver, and,
Okay.
and then we can,
Are we in
discuss
agreement that
anything
we're
else.
on, we're gonna allow the waiver regarding the wetlands, the path,
We're gonna vote on that.
cul-de-sac? That's on the other side.
Culvert?
Culvert, yeah, sorry.
Oh, culvert.
Culvert.
that's not a
That's-
waiver.
No, they just agreed.
That's part of the project.
Okay.
They're agreeing to the challenge.
Yeah, so,
The waiver specifically,
For the paddocks.
these
Just
two
for
paddocks, and,
A little
and
bit of,
just
Well-
to do it right, the 3 and 4, or is it 2 and 3?
so I would suggest that we waive,
Making a motion?
the bylaw that doesn't allow paddocks in the 100-foot buffer. Just waive that.
Oh, so he's not looking for the numbers?
1, 2, and 3, actually. 1, 2, 3, 11, and 12. The 1, 2, and 3 are tiny amounts,
Yep.
but amounts.
So you want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that we waive the paddock prohibition within a 100-foot buffer zone for this project, for the areas delineated in that map for paddocks 1, 2, 3, 11, and 12.
Okay.
Do we have to give the grounds for why we're waiving?
No, we've got that.
Okay, I'm just asking the
It's been
question.
documented in discussion.
Correct.
Anybody gonna second it, or am I
I'll
here
second.
all
Absolutely,
alone?
no,
We're just gonna let you hang out there.
I'll certainly second it, and you can second it, take your pick. So,
You got that, Julie?
Yep.
All right. So it's moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on the motion?
Who seconded it?
It was a hard-fought battle, but Bill won.
Horses seconded it.
All right, I guess we're ready to vote. So, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. So that's easier to do that. Okay, so it's
Unanimous.
unanimous.
Well, there you go, after all.
All right,
We have to vote on
yeah, so
the plan.
I'll make a motion that we issue the permit and approve the plans, final plans as discussed tonight, which are based on what's the latest dates of your submission of plans?
We'll have to provide you with
Option A, round pen
a plan
design.
that shows the culvert,
Show
correct
the,
culvert
have to
size,
give you a
and
revised.
this revised paddock layout
How are
that
you
you've
allowing to
marked up.
square up the land?
So it'll be sometime next week. So
They
if you wanna
did a small
So the
portion of it.
revised plans copy of the revised plans. What was the last copy of your plans?
The last revision date,
The last revision date is 2/11/19,
Okay.
revision 1, so the final plans will be revision 2.
So taking into account the discussions about bringing the culvert into compliance, rerouting
Well, yeah, so-
trails, and minor revisions. Where's the camera?
To that.
We're revising also the size of the paddock though, aren't we, as part of the?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, it's,
Yep.
it's that,
We're giving
that's,
them that portion,
Let me see.
squaring
We're
it
giving a
back.
little bit more, we're pushing
Yeah, so-
the
So they
tree,
come
the
out to
tree line
but they'll
out.
have the berm anyway, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And there's a
So we're squaring off the paddock number, whatever that is,
that's
11 or
11 or
12.
12.
Yeah.
the trapezoid thing.
I think it's 11, but I'm not sure.
yeah, that's 11.
So we're having the transposed lunging circle with
Send it back.
paddock 11 or 12.
squaring it off and adding a berm.
Correct.
Yes.
Squaring it off, but keeping it outside of the 25-foot
5-foot,
no
right.
build,
Right,
Yep.
no disturb,
no
no
disturb.
disturb, not no build, no disturb.
And moving the trees as shown on the plan to pushing that out to
Yeah,
the.
well, they can take a copy of this.
Okay.
and if you wanna make your motion, subject to a plan revision to be approved by Mike or Greg or something, that's fine too, so that you have,
Yeah,
sign off on it.
yeah, all right, so we'll add to that, Julie, per submitted plan to be approved by Rosemary.
There's a twist.
Um,
A new person.
Does this plan also, and this is reflecting on the other side, having nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but are we putting the stone markers on the other side by the,
By the top.
By 11
Here?
and 12.
And
Yeah, they're back there too.
okay, that's part of the plan then?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's putting the stone markers in. And are we going to talk about revising the trail?
I don't know, do you want
Well,
to
I think
include
it was suggested that at the construction meeting, or
Right.
pre-construction
We'll-
meeting,
we'll stake
that
it.
we stake off where we want it to be rerouted,
Okay,
where we want the fourth graders to build the bridge. He thinks I'm kidding.
I'm just trying to throw it, make sure we have everything in there that's,
Yeah,
excuse me.
you got all that, Julie?
You want me to read you?
actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay,
Yes.
Dempsey motion to issue permit and approve revised plans dated 2/11/19, revision 2, bringing culvert into compliance, rerouting trails and revising paddocks 11 and 12 by squaring them off, adding the berm so it's not in the 100-foot zone per submitted plan to be approved by Rosemary Deasy.
The
I think it's
berm's
only-
should be
The
100%.
25.
It's got to be the 25.
25, yeah.
no disturb zone.
And we're only squaring off the one paddock, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And is
We
that
just don't
11
know
or
which one
12,
it
do we
is.
know?
We don't know the number.
That is
I don't know.
It's not-
12,
The number?
that's 12.
It's this one right here. What's the new number for this paddock that they're gonna be
Can we discuss what kind of horses they have? Like,
I wonder what kind of trees.
Oh, yeah.
Do they have numbers on them? I don't think
Yeah,
they have
this
numbers.
one, this is,
11. Paddock 11 is.
But the little one, we don't have, these don't, or they
yeah,
do now.
see here, it's 11 and 12.
Figured we took off the.
So,
Well, do we know which is which?
12, 11.
That's what I was worried about. So it's 11. When they moved everything around,
Oh, okay.
Has all the paddock numbers on it?
The question is, this one's over here now, so is this one 12 and this one's 11?
I think we've
So-
agreed that it's
Say it's
11.
11.
Yeah, we'll call it 11, we'll make sure it says 11. on the
Okay,
revised
I
plan.
just want to make sure that we're, yeah. Not that I'm expecting you to do much crazy.
The horses don't think you do.
I don't know. Never asked him.
I'm not going to 11.
So we'll have Julie make a copy and give that. You can do it after
Okay.
we take a vote.
Are they both labeled 11?
It's an area pen, wherever it goes, it's,
I wonder if it's one of mine.
no.
So we have a motion, we've read it back, we've made
Yeah.
corrections.
So
Any additions?
any further discussion on the motion?
Did we
Any
second?
other
Well, are we
questions
seconding
on
it
I don't think
first?
have we moved?
Oh.
I think we're waiting to make sure it was complete before we tried to
Yes.
second it. We
All
all
right.
respectfully did not second it.
All right, so who's seconding
Second.
it? All right, so now it's been moved and seconded. We can just discuss it. So everyone understand what we're approving. Basically, we're approving the latest plans, you know, obviously with this change, but all the other changes that have been made with the crossing, the culvert size, the placement of the roadway,
The
a
trail.
lot of the other changes that were discussed at our last meeting last week.
The recreated wetlands area is part of the culvert project where they recreated wetlands.
Yes, and it's a single area as opposed
Was
to
it two?
originally
Yeah.
it was two areas. No other questions on it? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Okay, and it's unanimous. All right, so now, Julie, just make them a copy of that.
I can just take a picture of it.
So I'll move that we close this hearing at 8:42.
Second. I was watching him.
I didn't even open my mouth.
But you can lean forward.
I need to have a brief discussion about a totally different project.
So can we?
So they don't
vote on
need to
this?
sit here anymore unless they want to see
All
government
those
in
in
action.
I
favor?
just want to say
Yeah.
thank you very much for having,
Aye.
especially, I know that.
Thanks for being accommodating from us. I
We-
appreciate the
we
fact that you guys.
Greatly
move things
appreciate
around.
that.
Yeah.
Greg, send me an invoice as soon as possible, like tomorrow.
You had mentioned too, you wanted some help with your conditions.
Yes.
I'm happy to meet the road. There's a few continuing conditions or conditions that you should have in there with respect to the limited project.
Yes.
So let me know if you want me to do that.
Mary comes swooping in. What's he up
Yes.
to?
I want to hear about the timetable for the order so I can let them know when their appeal period is likely to be done, so.
We'll probably take at least 3 weeks.
To get the order out? Okay.
When do you think the revised plans will be submitted?
Oop, yeah, it already left.
There's
Okay.
talk of next week.
Yeah, I pushed him, but there's not a lot to do, so I would think by next week would be fine.
You did this one quickly in terms of moving stuff around,
Yeah,
so
he's
it's
got it
been
all,
less than
you
a
know,
week,
it's
so.
just changing
Here he comes.
changing the opening number.
Tomorrow, what I'm gonna do is, report back to Rebecca that we have approved, prepare a letter, to TEC addressing their remaining concerns, plus summarizing everything we've done here, and get that into them next week, because I think their next planning board meeting is March 5th. So the idea would be for me to meet with TEC next week to get all their stuff taken care of. So it'll be next week when we have the plans.
Great.
So March 5th is 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I think that's.
2 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you would anticipate signing the order at your next meeting, is that why you say 3 weeks?
Yeah,
We usually put the order together and then we.
yeah, but
We don't want to make any guarantees.
I'm
Yeah, no,
gonna
no.
be away.
And
I
we,
just
we'll come in, like I came in
Oh,
Friday and
okay.
signed something, I don't even know what it was,
Yeah.
but.
Okay.
Okay, just so I have some idea.
Yeah.
Because I.
Where are you going, Ann, we're good?
3 weeks from
Nice.
today or 3 weeks from.
You have good weather.
3 weeks from
Where are you
today.
going to?
Sanibel
I
Island.
love Sanibel.
Pass that down and just leave it easy.
Which part of the Captiva?
What's that?
Oh, Captiva.
Save the date for what?
So worst case scenario is that's the 13th of March,
They just did do nothing and it was perfect.
which would be our next hearings anyway.
I think this is like the 6th year we've gone now.
Good for
And
you.
Do we come back for the next meeting?
you don't need to.
No,
If you
Yeah.
really like our company.
Yeah, right.
you're done.
You're welcome.
If I haven't had enough, please come back.
If you want to see how we
By
treat
then you'll
people
know
we
all
don't
our
like,
names.
then
Okay, thank you very much.
April 27th.
Yeah, he's
Oh.
inviting you.
April 27th? I am,
So,
actually, not be able to go. No, wait a
I'm
minute,
pretty
yes,
sure I'm
will
out
be
of
back in
town.
April.
so,
No, still
did
no.
we take a vote to close that hearing?
yes, we did.
We did, we
Yeah,
just
that's-
didn't do that, all those in favor.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
just
favor.
us two.
Yes.
All those in favor of closing? Aye. See?
Since I am the chairman, you're getting me confused because I don't know what the
thought Heather was
heck
the
you're
chairman.
talking about
happened?
that you already did.
We're trying to close the meeting.
Well,
Close the
let me
meeting.
get into this discussion here that I need to get your opinion about this
Say aye.
thing.
I thought we were just closing the discussion on their stuff. Now we can get into your stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I thought
Right,
we
the,
did
the
close
the hearing is still open.
No,
The meeting is
No?
open, the hearing is closed.
If it only
I'm
is
sorry, the
on
meeting
that
is
end.
still open, the hearing,
Yes,
the
right.
hearing is closed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can pass that back to Rosemary.
Okay, give that back. to
All
us.
right, Mike,
All right.
speak now or you're gonna lose me.
Related to the certificate of compliance for Sewell Street, which I think needs one more signature, which Rosemary has to go get it.
I signed something on Friday, was that
Oh,
it?
I don't know if she may still need one more signature.
He didn't
I
read
was
it,
the
he
fourth,
just
I was the
signed.
fourth, I was the fourth signature, so.
Cool, yeah, I'll let you know, Greg, when the revised plan comes in, and then we can discuss that other stuff too.
That sounds good.
All right?
Greg, thanks for your help.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Sewell Street, are we all set for signatures?
Thanks, Greg.
Yes, that's what I went to check,
Okay.
this
We're all
form.
set.
Unless
All right.
anybody else wants to add.
I
No, I'm
think I
good.
signed that one.
I wasn't on the
signatures.
site.
Yeah, you
visit,
probably
so-
don't want any part of that one if you're not,
No,
if
so-
you're not on it.
Yeah,
So anyway, related to that site,
Okay.
they had put a comprehensive permit forward, 40B, for a friendly 40B originally. Now they have changed it to a normal 40B, which means that the zoning board of appeals is looking for any issues from us related to their plans for 192 unit, 4-building, affordable housing complex there by March 5th. So we're not going to have another meeting before March 5th.
No.
I was sent a 400-page document, which is the plans. And I tried to print out something that made sense, but even what I printed out doesn't really make
March
sense.
13th, we have a meeting.
So here's the question that I have is, you know, I don't know how you want to handle this.
This is the site with the issues.
The quarry.
Yeah,
quarry.
okay.
Yeah, so, they, on a 40B, they get to waive all our bylaw wetland protection
Local.
stuff. So
All the local stuff.
according
I
to,
don't agree with that.
no, but they
Don't
have,
have a choice.
we don't have any choice.
That's
No
nice.
It's a
Just
40B.
saying.
So this is what it says, waivers requested from all local wetland regulations. The project will comply with the requirements of 310 CMR
They
10,
could have done.
the Wetlands Protection Act and its
The
regulations.
town, but they
So they're saying that,
directly to
you know, everything
housing.
is kosher with DEP's normal wetland regulations, which they have to comply with. And they, you know, under our bylaw, we have to waive the whole thing because it's a local bylaw.
Do they need to do a turtle study or anything?
Yes, that's part of it.
Doesn't DEP already have something out on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Alright.
they did. Natural Heritage did that. They've got the whole thing with Natural Heritage. They got a whole turtle protection plan that they have to do. I think they're even gonna have to give some of the back in the woods land to
Natural heritage.
somebody in the state. So, I mean, is this something we should be concerned about at all? No, we shouldn't be concerned about. We love them and we think they're doing a good job. Or, yes, we should be very concerned, or we don't really know, but we'd like to know more
I'm
about
going
it.
with yes, just based on the past experience we've already had,
Yes, what?
that we do have an issue.
Yeah.
Being concerned.
Yeah, we're concerned.
I-
Only because of their non-compliance in the past.
Yes, that,
Well, it's a different
concerns me.
group though, isn't it?
well, yes, yes.
When you're talking about the site's non-compliance, you can't really blame the current people who
Did something happen
seem to
where-
be, it was a nightmare.
No, I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah.
a different,
Yeah, they sold it off.
Well, but one of the players was still the same,
the one
the one that was here.
okay, yeah, okay.
No, but before that, it
Oh,
was,
aggregate.
before that, it was owned by Aggregate, and then after Aggregate, it was sold, it
I'm
was,
talking about the current one that happened in the winter meeting, whatever
Yes.
meeting that was.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
He's
same
still-
owner,
yes.
guy, or
Yes.
Still
whatever.
involved,
Okay.
yes.
William Daly.
I don't know his name.
He's the applicant.
Okay.
Yes, he was the person we dealt with moving the pond around and
Okay.
fixing the site there. And we did that site visit.
Putting the stuff into the channel to check what
Yeah,
fluids are coming out.
that,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
right. This is the certificate of compliance that we signed.
Right.
So, you know, I'm not 100% sure of, I'm gonna have to read the thing to see how they plan on dealing. I guess the area that I'm concerned about is runoff from the site.
Right, that's always the concern.
And so, you know, it's hard enough that under our bylaw, I'm pretty familiar with the sections of our bylaw that would support restrictions outside of the 100-foot buffer. But under just DEP alone, I don't know.
They're bringing in a lot of fill.
Yes,
Who is inspecting the fill that's being brought in?
it's all in DEP's hands.
Do they have a monitor there?
No,
They're just
No.
saying, sure, go in and,
they have to
Yeah.
create records and submit them to DEP. So every truck that comes in, it's weighed, it's presumably had some analysis of it or whatever.
I'm sorry, let's ask a lawyer what the word presumably means
No, but
in a legal sense.
that,
I already rolled my eyes, so
that,
Okay,
that wasn't under our purview at all. It's not anything we put together.
right, but I'm wondering, the town is,
The town,
I don't think
Our
it's
town.
involved. Yeah,
no, the town's permit on it was just,
done away with.
yeah, as long as you meet DEP's requirements, you're fine. And DEP's requirements are,
well, I would just like to suggest that the town should maybe be a little more proactive in making sure that DEP is keeping an eye on things.
I think they're moving horse manure in there.
That's possible. Hey, there's a surplus of it.
I don't know what we can do about that.
All right, we're concerned, we've decided that.
We should probably have somebody take a look at it once a week or something. Maybe
don't know.
send our agent out there to just take a
To
quick,
patrol it.
well,
I
I
don't-
mean, just once a week,
At
just to
this
see.
point, I don't think we have to
What are you
say
looking
any
for?
specific remedy. We have to say what our concerns
Okay.
are.
Our concerns are runoff.
They have to seal, they still have to seal the place in the back. I think that was one of the main concerns was the place, he said there's still stuff leaching out of the one area. He was gonna seal it in with some sort of clay or something was what he was talking about. when we
Well,
were
it's
there.
leaching out, but it's not getting to the wetlands, I don't think.
But he
is
was
it?
gonna, that's what I'm saying, he was gonna encapsulate what was the chemicals
Right, he's
that
got,
were
he's got to
there.
fill in to bring it up to grade at least.
He was gonna go all the way up to the top.
Well, I
Or
don't know
like
if
at
it's
least
gonna go all the way
halfway
up,
to
halfway up,
Halfway
I
up.
think he
Yeah,
said.
so, but I think that's our principal concern, is making sure that when that they're doing it, they properly seal off what is the chemicals that are there. And then making sure that is the part of that process, that they continue to monitor what leaches out, that it's still not gonna, it's not gonna.
Were there chemical issues or was it just sediment?
I think it was,
It's just sediment,
oh, really?
yeah.
I thought it was chemicals he was talking about.
I
I don't think they,
so.
like, took
Nothing yet.
the Narragansett Bay Harbor sediment full of PCBs and dumped it up there. I think it was just really nasty clay silt
that
that
was going everywhere.
that nothing could grow in, and every time it rained, it was washing into the wetlands, and it covers all the nesting areas for the reptiles and amphibians with a layer of pretty much impenetrable mud. The end.
All right, so you're happy with me trying to put a letter together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
About our concerns.
Well, our concerns, the only concern that I've heard so far is that we're concerned about runoff from the site into the.
Well, I don't think I don't think our jurisdiction allows us to be concerned about anything else, does it?
I don't know.
What about that other pool that they're gonna get rid of, that they were talking about, which was when you're walking up the driveways to the right? They said they were gonna eliminate that pool, but there was a pool that was certainly there.
You mean the retention pond?
Yeah, the second one, that was to the right, not the one that was to the left that they were doing, we said they were doing a good job with. The other one, they said we're gonna eventually make that one disappear.
Oh,
We got all the stones in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in the corner.
What happens to that when it disappears?
Yeah, the
They were gonna
riprap
fill
is
it,
in
right?
there, but you're right, yeah, that pond is what I was thinking of.
I'm still wondering if we can bring it up to grade, where's the wetlands area gonna look like? I mean, we're gonna have, how high up is it gonna be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
cliff.
So I guess to Terry's point, isn't it, I mean, a major concern is compliance with any of the DEP.
Retention wall.
Yeah, I mean, we can't, our
Regulations.
bylaws mean nothing.
Just like the other guy does.
So-
Compliance with DEP, yeah.
Yeah,
DEP, we, in
just based on our
in
experience.
lieu of anybody else
Yeah.
keeping an eye on things, then I think it sort of behooves us to be there. I mean,
Yeah.
how often do you think the DEP's gonna come
But- and the
wandering
his-
around?
And the history of that site.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I mean, it's quite frankly, it's in better shape than it's been in the entire time that, how long have I been there, Mike? 15 years?
Yeah,
And you've been there longer?
right.
We ought to pull Joe in here and hear the real history. But it's in better shape now than I'd ever seen it before.
Yes.
And that's good, but that doesn't mean it's gonna stay that way when they start
Well, when
hauling
they start
in
trucking
a
stuff
couple
in,
hundred
yeah.
truck or a couple thousand truckloads or however much it turns out to be. It's gonna be a lot. And it's gonna change the topography, and right now, there's, in the quarry area, it sort of prevents it from running off, but once you fill it up, it's not gonna prevent runoff anymore, unless there's something done to prevent it, berm built up or something.
Mm.
So I think even if it's not in our town jurisdiction, I think we owe it to ourselves in the town to
Say
kind
something.
Make sure
of look out and be there to say to the DEP if there's an issue. might want to get some of your people come take a look at this.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm suggesting, just swinging by once every week or two and seeing what things look like. If only we had an agent to do
How
that
often do you
for
think
us.
that you would appreciate going over to the site?
Oh, I'm always up for a good walk.
It's a big site.
It
I was
is,
gonna say,
yes.
how far in?
I don't think my car would. make
You can
it.
drive in now, they've got,
Well, it's so far, you can
Yeah.
only drive so far.
we're not suggesting you try to four-wheel it up the quarry wall there.
I don't
Can we
think,
get her a four-wheeler?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Right.
I think every other week though
A
would
gator?
probably be just fine. I mean, like,
Drive
every
her
week
from
seems
here?
kind of, there's not a lot that's going on at this point that I'm aware of.
Yeah, but it's gonna,
Yeah.
I mean,
When the
a
truck
dump truck,
goes-
when you see how small a dump truck is compared to the size of that hole.
No, I know, yeah. How about, for now, every other week,
Do we
but
know
it
why
may,
they're,
with subject
they're
to.
not making it friendly anymore?
Yards and yards.
Did they say why they weren't making it friendly anymore? I mean, no.
They just don't want oversight.
They said it was too slow a process for
Yeah.
the town. That's what they said.
Who said that?
That was their reason for not pursuing it through the town anymore.
Yeah, but who said that? How did we hear that?
I heard it from Rebecca,
Oh,
who heard it from Denise, as far as I know.
why would they have proposed that to begin with?
Because I think it was.
It just,
You want me to tell you while we're on TV?
Yeah, you
it just
can.
works out better if everybody gets along. Move to adjourn. Not kidding.
Well, either way, they identified the issues that they could, in front of the town, so the town has a better idea of what's
There's a
going on.
motion on the floor.
Second.
You didn't even hear it.
During the meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
Wait a minute.
Don't you want everything to be off the record?
No, I just want to make sure I can do, I'm trying to get
I
as
think we've
much
already established.
information from everyone as possible so
Well,
I can write a letter.
we've submitted our concerns.
Yes, but
And we
they're.
tasked you with writing the letter.
We tasked you with writing a letter.
Yes, I
And we're gonna
understand
have
that.
we're gonna have our agent,
Go out there on a weekly basis.
go on.
2 weeks, 2
Oh,
weeks.
2 weeks, sorry.
Well,
2 weeks unless.
Actually,
Unless
it's gonna
more
be
is
surprise
necessary.
visits.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
doesn't need to go in the letter, that's really.
No.
We want them to be
No.
aware that we're still monitoring it, though. I think that's important for it to go in the letter, that we're gonna be sending the agent out to just monitor these things.
I don't know, but
Who is this letter going to?
this letter
Planning?
goes to the state
Oh.
eventually, so they don't care about that kind of stuff.
No.
All right.
I thought you were
so-
sending it to the guy who's doing the project.
No, no.
Oh,
He
okay.
gets a copy of it, but we're making our comments to the zoning board, which
That's funny,
eventually
because the zoning
goes.
board isn't, is that on? Is that on?
No.
Yep, you're on TV right now.
All right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye. Terry's very.
Terry's already done it.
He's already halfway home.